Building a body from blueprints. This is your spooky spot on new Jada Toys Universal Monsters Frankenstein. The Universal Monsters have finally been made into 6-inch scale figures. Jada presents the Frankenstein's monster based on the classic 1931 film. He's fully articulated and comes with interchangeable heads and several accessories. Seeing as this is our second Universal Monsters figure from Jada Toys, it makes things certainly a lot easier when it comes to size comparisons. We can move over Frankenstein's monster, and we can then bring in for some size comparisons the originally looked at Bela Lugosi Dracula. Of course, similar to the film, Dracula would be a lot smaller than Frankenstein, so I'm glad to see that Jada Toys, when it came to releasing these figures, made them scaled accordingly, that Frankenstein's monster would tower over the likes of Dracula here. Like with Dracula, Frankenstein comes included with character-specific accessories that we'll have a look at right now. Starting first, he comes with a pair of shackles, although we're only going to look at one for right now. The shackles do work in the sense that you can actually close them shut and peg them together around Frankie's wrists. I'll show you that in a second. The chains are connected, or I should say the shackles are connected by a real chain. And while the chain appears to be painted plastic rather than metal, I appreciate at least the fact that they did put a real working chain in there as opposed to just molding a chain, a pre-molded chain in between the two. And like I said, he does have two of these. I'll put these on the figure in a second. One other thing I also want to show you guys too is this swappable hands. I really like the look of these hands. Comparing them to the stock hands that he comes included with, I prefer these hands because they're a little bit more Frankenstein-esque. I'll apologize in advance if I call this guy Frankenstein or Frankenstein's monster. Interesting thing about the packaging, though, is that it lists the character as Frankenstein, not Frankenstein's monster. But these are really good Frankenstein hands. I'll put those onto the figure in a second as well. The last of his accessories will have to wait for a second. That's his swappable head sculpt, as I wanted to first show you what the stock head sculpt looks like for Frankenstein. Now he's painted in all green. Again, going to the idea that I had mentioned with the Dracula, it would be nice to see at some point this guy get released down the road as a grayscale variant. The detailing is nice on this figure. I don't know if I would say it bears a strong resemblance to Boris Karloff, but you get enough of Frankenstein of a read here that very much looks like a Frankenstein character. He's got the staples painted nicely there in silver, little bolts, of course. You got to have the bolts on the sides of his neck, and even has the scar on the forehead as well. Does it look as much like Boris Karloff as the Dracula looked like Bela Lugosi? I don't think so. But I think it's a nice looking... One of the things I really like about this line I've seen so far is that the figures very much feel like vintage figures, like something I would be able to go into a Toys R Us maybe in the early 80s as a kid and maybe find these sitting on the shelf. Mind you, mentioned in the Dracula review as well, I don't think they would have had as much articulation that Jada Toys managed to squeeze all in there into Frankenstein. We'll talk about more in a second. The detailing, like I said, on his face is pretty good. Really like the dark shadowing they put around his eyes. His eyes almost have like a lazy look to them, with a bit of a drooping eyelid. I like the fact they've done that. Nice airbrushing also around the cheeks and just below the chin area there as well. It makes for a really nice looking Frankenstein. And as I said, he does come with two versions of a head sculpt. The other one I'll pop in place in a second. As for his jacket, the broad shoulders represented here on Frankenstein. The plastic that they've used here is a little bit more denser than the tuxedo used for Dracula. The texturing and the detailing onto the material, is that a twill jacket? Possibly. A few pockets on the sides, a few buttons there on the top. It really makes for a nice looking jacket on Frankenstein here. Now again, you can open this up. It's a little harder to pry away the plastic, but inside you can actually see that they've sculpted some nice detailing on the inner shirt also. The figure certainly has a lot of nice texturing incorporated. Also some decent paint too. It's a little harder to see, I'm sure, but even on the arms themselves, they've actually airbrushed a slightly darker shade of the green to kind of fill in little shadowed areas of it. It really does look quite nice. As we continue our journey down Frankenstein's body here, of course, we're getting much broader looking legs and the elevated stilted boots, which is something, of course, made famous in the 30s film. He does have some nice articulation despite the fact he's got these big clonkers. Even has a nice ankle tilt as well. So let's have a look at the alternate head sculpt now that we've sort of covered off the territory on Frankenstein. He comes with this head sculpt as well. I kind of like the charm of this one. He's smiling. I just love the look of that. So if you want to go with a little less personality, you can go with this head sculpt. If you want to go with a little bit more zing, then you can display him with this head sculpt instead. To change out the head sculpts, it's quite easy actually. Just hold on again onto the torso and just wiggle Frankenstein off the ball joint. Interesting thing about his ball joint, unlike Dracula's, which was I think double the length, Frankenstein's actually a more modest length of post. And then from there you can go ahead and just attach the new head sculpt. Just plug that in place. And you get this head sculpt here. One last look to show you the two. I like this one, I have to say, over this one. It's quite the opposite when we looked at Dracula. I like the stock head sculpt more so. But I think I'm leaning a little more to having Frankenstein smiling. I just love the look of that. Now, one last thing as well. We can go ahead and swap the hands out. Seeing as we're in the business of popping things off Frankenstein, we might as well not stop there. We're going to go ahead and remove the hands. The hands are actually pretty easy to remove. We're going to remove that hand first, replace it with a suitable hand. Thumbsies go in. Pop that in place. Then we'll do the exact same thing. I guess we should have actually wiggled the hand off first and then wiggle this back hand off, because what I'm also going to do as well is take the shackles, and the shackles will just fit around his wrist. Now you're probably curious as to why he would have come with two. Well, the other ones technically could go around his, I guess, his feet, or if you want to have them loose, I guess that would be another thing as well. You can have them displayed with the shackles being broken. But let's just say you want to take the two shackles and connect them together. You can fit them around Frankenstein's wrist like this. Take the pegs and snap them in place. And then we'll go from there. Let's actually, you know what? Let's take the hand and put that in place first. Once that's in place, at least the shackle isn't going to be going anywhere. Now we can go in there and just make sure that's plugged in. Just see if I can find the hole there. There we go. The only thing I could say is like the shackles, the clips don't seem to stay together all that much of a time. We'll go ahead and do the exact same thing. You really even don't need to open up the shackles either. I mean, they're more than enough to be able to fit over top of the sockets of his forearms. And we'll go ahead and just put the new hand in place. Plug that in. And there you got Frankenstein with both the shackles in place. And again, you get his second one of these. I guess it really is too big to be fitting around his ankle, so you could do one of two things. You could either have the shackles loose and have him draping the shackles underneath his arms, or again, you just have a backup, I guess, if you want to use that for maybe another display, or even maybe use it for Dracula. But it's nice to see that he actually comes included with the shackles, short of, again, the fact that the pegs don't quite stay together. I do probably think when it comes to, I think, displaying Frankenstein, I'm more inclined, I think, to display him with the shackles in place, and definitely going to be displaying him with this head sculpt. I think it's the better of the two. Figure we'll look at the articulation now on Frankie, starting first, of course, with his head sculpt. The head rotates all the way around. If you are worried that he's going to be clipping those bolts on either side, I wouldn't be worried so much. I mean, yeah, if you have the head a little bit lower down, it probably could clip that. But if you have the head a little higher, then yes, you can rotate all the way around and not have to worry of it. The head looks down, and the head looks up. Maybe not as low down as Dracula, but he still has quite the range of motion when it comes to his head articulation. Again, you can even rock it back and forth as well. For Frankie's arms, his arms rotate all the way around. They're a little on the tighter side because, of course, he's got a little bit of extra length of shoulder here that drapes out from, of course, the jacket. So, of course, it makes things a little more tighter quarters when it comes to rotating the arms. In fact, you probably can even hear that. Oh, there we go. The arms also hinge out, and similar to Dracula, they only go out to about a 45-degree angle. After that, there seems to be definitely some resistance at play here. The biceps swivel. There's a swivel cut halfway up, or about 3/4 of the way up the biceps, so you can rotate the arm all the way around this way. There's a double hinge on the elbow. The hands, of course, whatever hands you decide to display them with, rotate all the way around, and there's also the little hinge joint there too. I didn't have to make necessarily the noise. For his torso, despite the fact he's encased inside there's a denser plastic jacket, he actually does have torso articulation, a nice ball joint working there. The legs split out. You can go forward and you can go back, and I guess while we're moving things forward, you can see that there's a peg hole on the bottom of Frankie's boots. He does have a swivel 3/4 of the way up the thigh. which allows the legs to rotate all the way around. He has a double hinge, a nice double hinge on the knee. And when it comes to, again, the boots, they hinge up and down. And you can also ankle pivot them too. And for wrapping things up before we close up shop for the day, there's Frankenstein's monster. That was pretty good this time. I didn't call him Frankenstein too often. And there he is next to Dracula that we already had a look at. Loving this line. I really am liking this line. Now, so far, this line only consists of 4 figures. Jada Toys has also announced that they are releasing a deluxe version of Frankenstein, which I think is also going to be in the grayscale, but it's going to come with the operating table. I'm super excited to have a look at that. But again, I'm really liking this line. Not so much the fact that they are dead-on likenesses, which is funny that I'm saying that for Frankenstein and Dracula. I don't think there's as dead-on likeness of Boris Karloff when I'm seeing the Frankenstein. But, you know, as just a Frankenstein's monster, that first of all comes with some pretty cool accessories, and second of all has the posability that Jada Toys put into these figures. Again, I'm really liking this line, and I'm really liking the Frankenstein's monster too. Seeing as Frankie does come included with a pair of shackles instead of just the one, here in final looks, as he spins around on the rotisserie, I've got him displayed with both. Notably, though, you may already see that one of the shackles is a little bit longer than the other. So if you wanted to display him with the longer shackles, you can do that. If you want to display him with one of each, you can do that. Or you can just leave them off in their entirety. You will also notice, though, here in final looks, that I've got him displayed with that grimaced face. If it's supposed to be anguish, I'm not seeing anguish on Frankie's face. It looks like he's actually full of joy. I'm loving that head sculpt with a big smile across his face. The coloring on this guy is very much close to that original Frankenstein design. Still, I would love to see Jada Toys release all of the 4 figures that we're looking at in this wave in black and white variants. I'm sure they're probably going to want to get the most mileage out of their molds. The idea of releasing them as black and white not only sound great on paper for them, but it sounds great as well for us collectors that would like to get colored versions of these guys as well as black and white versions. Fingers crossed that actually does happen. Have you picked up the Frankenstein? If you have, let me know down below in the comments section. And we are now 2 figures in on a 4-figure wave. We still have to look at the creature from the Black Lagoon, and we're also going to look at the Bride of Frankenstein. Both figures look pretty cool in packaging right now. I'm sure they're probably going to look pretty cool when we have them finally out on display. Hey now, are you new here? I'm not directing actually to the gentleman that's at the back of the room that just stumbled into the premiere. If you are new here and you're enjoying the content you've been seeing so far here on this channel, there's a couple of the things that you can do for you. First of all, you can hit that subscribe button down below. Second of all, you can hit that bell notification. I guess third of all, you can also keep your peepers peeled to this channel, because not only are we going to be looking at the Bride of Frankenstein, not only are we going to be looking at the creature from the Black Lagoon, but we're also going to be looking at other spookerific reviews during the month of Spottober. And new person that just came in and asked, wait, Spottober, that's not really a month. No, it's not really a month. That's what we do on this channel at this time of month. It's not really October. Lots of stuff coming your way, guys. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.